Hello everybody, welcome to the channel. In today's video, we're going to be talking about Hoppers, the brand new original Pixar film that just hit theaters. Is it great or did it utterly disappoint? That's what I want to get into here today in this video. But before we do, please be sure to drop a like and also, more importantly, subscribe, especially if you guys want to see me talk about movies, shows, and everything in between. But listen, let's just cut right to the chase here, just to give you guys a bit of context on my own personal feelings with Pixar as a whole, because I feel like I need to talk about that. I grew up a Pixar kid, and I'm basically still a Pixar kid, even at 23 years old. Admittedly, haven't been watching as much Pixar over maybe the past year or so, but either way, I absolutely adore them. I can admit, because I love them so much, I feel that I can criticize them. They've definitely been on a colder streak with me personally. I feel like I haven't really been connecting with a lot of the stuff that they've been putting out. I look over the past couple of years, I understand they went through COVID, there was the writer's strike, and all these different things that kind of played a hand in that, but still, some of the things that didn't go to theaters, Onward, even though that did hit theaters, but then COVID immediately struck it, I think is fine. Elemental, I'm not really a big fan of. This is a hot take, but Soul, I'm not really a big fan of. Elio from last year was like okay to me. Inside Out 2 is pretty good, but the problem is now we're getting into sequel territory where now every good movie that you make is just going to be a sequel, or all you're going to make are sequels, which scares me because Pixar is known for its incredible original ideas. So we were getting into pretty dangerous territory. I might be leaving a thing or two out, but one thing that is worth mentioning is that there still was hope, because 5 years ago, Luca came out. And I am under the impression that Luca is the most underrated Pixar movie. It's borderline top 5 Pixar for me. That's how good I think it is. Like, incredible. Maybe it just hit me a bit deeper for some reason. I don't know. But the way that portrayed friendship was unbelievable. But either way, it showed me that post-COVID, Pixar still has the sauce. They have the juice. They just haven't been capturing that potential. And they're slowly walking down this dangerous path, which is the sequel route. They're putting out Inside Out 2. Now they're going to be making Toy Story 5. But between that, there was this little film called Hoppers coming out. And I would just like to make one thing clear. Hoppers is Pixar's best film in 5 years. I really hope that it's been 5 years since Luca, because I'm pretty sure that came out in 2021. Either way, it is their best film in 5 years. I absolutely adored this movie. Before I get into this, I do want to say one thing. When it comes to my own personal context with this movie as well, I know I just talked about Pixar. I watched the first trailer whenever that came out months and months and months ago, and I haven't really seen anything else since. I've been just trying to avoid things because I'll admit it, I wasn't necessarily like over the moon excited for this movie. Again, Pixar I've been kind of on and off with, so it's been a bit of a weird patch, but I think one thing I need to say is that since I didn't really know what to expect going to this movie, this is going to sound dramatic, but it's a real, genuine thing for any human being. I think that I was able to escape from the prison that is expectations. I think that since I went into this movie with basically no expectations, I was able to enjoy it so much more. And yes, did I expect a good movie out of Pixar? Sure, but I didn't really know what the plot was necessarily. I knew that there was like a girl that turned into a beaver, and I assumed that it was about like saving nature generally. But boy, oh boy, this movie is crazy. Like, one of Pixar's most weird films ever, if not their weirdest. I'll stamp it right now. This is Pixar's weirdest film. And I don't mean weird in the sense of like when we look at Toy Story, oh, you know, what if toys came to life or whatever. No. I mean the direction that this plot goes in, some of the ways that they deal with the science in this film, and just the crazy twists and turns that this movie takes. Because, oh my god, it is way more simple or way more complex than the simple way that it looks at face value. Because, oh my god, again, like I just said, the movie just continues to twist and turn and get crazier the longer it goes on. But let's just reel things back a little bit. Let's dial it down. I'm kind of going a bit crazy here. What makes this movie so great? First of all, the pacing. This movie is like an hour, 45 minutes, and it is quick. This, especially the first act, breezes by. It feels like we're almost montaging through, but in reality, that fits the energy of the film so well. And, you know, it has its time to have its slower, more somber moments where we need to kind of establish like what the emotional stakes of this film are going to be, especially between our main character, Mabel, and her grandmother, and just that relationship and how that made her who she is, especially when we look at her in the present day. But It's one of these things where the energy is just so high and we are just blazing through at 100 miles per hour. And normally that seems like it would be a bad thing, like we're not letting things sit. But I think everything's given just enough time without overstaying its welcome. And then we're moving on to the next thing, the next fun scene or the next crazy scenario. And on top of that, in terms of the pacing and the structure of the story, this movie just gets crazier the longer that it goes on. It's one of these films, and usually this is a complaint for me, where it doesn't want to end. You think the movie's about to end, but then something else happens, and then we have a scene, then something else happens, and then we have a scene. And it just keeps going on, and you're like, oh my god, I can't believe this. It just feels like Pixar truly tried to swing for the fences with this film, and played it not safe whatsoever. Like, is it just the absolute craziest Spider-Verse-like movie? No, but it feels different than Pixar's usual wheelhouse, which I really enjoyed. The animation style, yes. Is it somewhat familiar? Sure. But I think it's familiar more on the terms of and within the context of it being closer to like an Illuminations film or like a Sony animated film, where this doesn't really look like their typical Pixar animation style. It looks closer to something like that you'd see in The Wild Robot or like Home, that movie from a couple like years back or like a decade ago or whatever. But it doesn't really look like that usual animated style. And I think that looked really good because it was such a breath of fresh air. And from there, the color palette, it feels really nice and it's just thrilling as a whole. But I just feel like that's kind of what keeps this film fresh, is that every once in a while, whenever you'll have like a pretty cool scene, there is one route that they could go where you're like, hey, you know what? Let me just give you an example. A chase scene, right? There's a car chase scene in this movie, not a spoiler whatsoever. They could have just went the safe route and kind of just had it be pretty normal, but they throw this absolutely bonkers out of left field element into this chase sequence that I'm not going to spoil because I would not want you to see this before you see the movie. And it completely changed the way that I perceived this 5-minute stretch of this film, and my mind was just blown. All I'm going to say is, actually, I don't even want to say anything because there's only one car chase scene, but you'll know what I'm talking about. It's silly, it's wacky, and it's not afraid to be weird. Speaking of it being weird, since we're dealing with animals and, just the way that they interact with humans and their relationship as a whole, it can get a bit complex when it comes to, preserving nature. And that's like the whole thematic element here is that, we shouldn't kill the animals. I mean, we've seen it time and time again, but it tries to do something different. That could be a negative a bit, where I do wish they leaned a bit more onto the fact that, like, oh, we need to save the animals, and humans really do bad things to animals. And at some points of the film, I feel like it does villainize animals. It kind of antagonizes them rather than being fully focused on humans. But the way that they managed to make the animals antagonists at some points of the film was very creative and intense. And speaking of intensity, listen, obviously this is a movie for babies, okay? I'm not going to act like it's not, but there are moments of this film that are very creepy and that are intense. There are genuinely 3-minute stretches in this movie, like at multiple points, where things get intense. Like, it feels like you're watching a thriller. There's not jokes. Like, it just plays things dead serious. And I feel like, especially if you're in like the middle of the woods with a bunch of animals, that can get pretty creepy. And they like went for something different within those sequences. It really feels like something from like Sam Raimi, or you could even say like, I don't even know, I want to say like John Carpenter. It's very creative with where it goes in that sense on an individual scene basis. And again, everything really does flow by. Another negative, I would say, not that it's really a big negative, is that I don't know if this movie is the most emotional Pixar movie. I don't think every Pixar movie needs to make me absolutely cry. I look at a movie like Onward, and even though I don't like it as much as this movie, I think it has a more emotional Pixar moment, which I know people like to say, at the end with the dad, but I think this movie does have its emotional parts for sure, and it got me. I don't want to say it made me cry or anything crazy like that, but I will, because obviously I don't cry at movies. No, but in all seriousness, it's just one of these things where I wish it reached a bit of higher highs, and not just for like shock value, like, okay guys, this is when you're supposed to cry. I just think maybe it would have made things hit a bit harder, but I can't act like I didn't fall in love with these characters. And speaking of the characters, they're just so entertaining. You've got our main character, Mabel, who's just pretty like off the walls crazy. She has her goal that she wants to save the animals, and that's like her tunnel vision way of seeing things. Then you got the mayor that she's kind of playing off of and butting heads with, who's just like this kind of just like typical mayoral figure, whatever you want to say. I don't think that's even a word, but seriously, that like your typical like political figure, whatever. But then you kind of see how they change over the course of the movie, how maybe sometimes they need to work together, sometimes they butt heads, and it just gets very complex, I'll just say, with their relationship, especially when she turns into the beaver. Now listen, I think all the animals in here are really cool. I think they maybe could have been like utilized a bit more in some more creative ways, but I think that's something they absolutely nailed, and this is something I need to make very clear, is that I think this is the funniest Pixar movie. Like, you know, maybe it's competing, maybe it's neck and neck with like 8 Pixar movies, because a lot of Pixar movies are very funny, but there are so many moments in here, just purely off visual gags, that made me burst out laughing. They're just so great. There's even just some great dialogue that gets a chuckle out of me, some good callbacks to things as we get later in the film, to things that happened earlier. And I think it just plays them so well, especially when you've got animals trying to communicate with humans, but obviously they don't speak the same language. So that might have been the funniest part of the movie. But overall, I feel like it's just such a great time, and I just feel like Pixar's truly back with this movie. Now, I don't want to jump the gun here, okay? Because like I said, there's maybe a couple of small negatives, and I don't want to act like this is some absolute masterpiece. But either way, I do think that overall it's a very successful Pixar film for them. And next year, we're getting another original film called Gato that I am so excited for. Look it up to see like a little synopsis. They're going to be doing like watercolor, paintbrush art style. I cannot wait for that. And that's an original film as well. So if they get on a bit of a hot streak here, maybe we are so back. But just to kind of summarize my thoughts here, my only 2 negatives would be that I don't think it gets as emotional as it really should, at least I guess you could say like towards the end, because that's usually when Pixar has like their bigger moments. And then from there, I would say that, you know, maybe it's just not like the greatest Pixar thing that I've ever seen, which is just natural. Some of the side characters don't get enough screen time as I think they should, but either way, it's a very good movie, and it feels like a riskier Pixar movie that paid off. Because I feel like Elio from last year was so safe. It was so straightforward. But this movie is great. What's my final rating going to be of Hoppers? I'm going to settle on a 4 out of 5. I thought it's a really great film. It's my favorite movie of the year so far. And man, I really hope this kicks off a new era of Pixar because it feels so fresh. But we'll see what happens with Toy Story 5 because maybe that could derail this entire thing. But thank you guys so much for watching this video. Let me know what you thought about Hoppers down in the comments below. And I will see you in the next video.